It's said.
Well, with newspapers.
Not for any meal.
But for newspapers.
What's a better breakfast than Good Morning Nigeria, in which newspaper review is embedded? Victor,
well,
what are sabotagers?
Okay.
Demo, how are you doing?
Doing great.
I don't want to be called a parrot by you today, so I seal my lips at this point, so we can go on.
Yeah, right. Chooks the gentleman.
Pretending to be a gentleman. How long would that last?
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
So let's begin with the leadership papers here. And just above the nameplate, FG to roll out malaria vaccine in Bayelsa, Kebbi. Nakon takes Umrah visa issue to Saudi Arabia, page 12. And below the nameplate, CBN's 24.75% rate hike puts borrowers on the edge. With the rider, approval for $2.4 billion forex backlog withheld for ineligibility. That's according to CBN Governor Cardoso. And then DSS invited me to find a solution to banditry. That's according to Sheikh Gumi. That's not quite reflecting the tone of yesterday's papers. And a major headline here, as attacks on farmers escalate, 18.6 million Nigerians face acute hunger. That's on page 4, with some diagram there to show how this is the case. Public sector most affected by corruption. That's according to a survey, and it's found on page 7. Chinese who killed Nigerian girlfriend to die by hanging, page 6. IPOB gets funds from affiliates in 22 countries, and that's according to NFIU, page 7. Finally, Okwama slain soldiers for burial today. That's all there is on the front page of the leadership papers. And then we move on to the Nation. Above the nameplate, troops raid Clark's home in search of soldiers' killers. That's according to page 3. Nakon in talks with Saudi authorities over Hajj visa shortage. Page 3. PDP to review party leadership in wards, councils, 26 states. Page 3. Kuriga 137. Anxious parents demand to see pupils. That's on page 4. And then the story of the interest rate is also here, which we have read in the other paper. Security agencies begin probe of $24 billion on verified forex payments. I think the CBN governor alluded to that yesterday. Zamfara governor, my state epicenter of kidnapping, others. Lawal seeks full military action to stop bandits. Kidnappers should be treated as terrorists. And military frees 230 Boko Haram suspects. That story can be found on page 4. From the front page to page 4. And finally, 16 excluded Plateau Assembly APC lawmakers seek president's intervention. That's on page 2. Demola.
Okay, I have with me the Vanguard newspaper. And above the nameplate, we have CBN raises interest rate to 24.75%. Insists all verified FX backlog cleared. The details can be found on page 19. Omeha was never governor of Rivers. Court rules. The story can be found on page 12. Binance collaboration with SEC, EFCC, NSA fruitful. CBN governor. The details can be found on page 9. NSE president chairs Vanguard IWD as Okote, Osafile, Ambrose, others attend. Banditry, Zamfara under siege. Governor Lawal tells Tinubu. That story can be found on page 30. And below the nameplate, we have Okwama, how government security bodies failed to rein in militant leader. Vanguard investigation. That's the main headline, and that story can be found on page 5. Kuka to federal government. Interrogate persons with ties to bandit. No cause for alarm, says Gumi after questioning by security men. That story can be found on page 9. Court sentences Chinese national to death by hanging for murdering girlfriend. Mambila firm vows to deliver 3,050 megawatt hydropower project. The story is on page 11. Nigeria can host Commonwealth Games successfully. Eno, that is the Minister of Sport, and the story can be found on page 39. It's over to you, Chooks.
Yes, Demola, thank you so much. You wouldn't want to be in the shoes of Zamfara governor. He says Zamfara has become the epicenter of banditry in the north, and that if you don't solve what is happening in Zamfara, you're not going to get it right concerning reining in the nefarious activities of bandits and terrorists, in northern Nigeria. And he's absolutely right. You don't need to go begin, research hugely to understand why he's saying this. Remember the kids who were taken from Kaduna ended up where? In Zamfara. It all started about 5 years ago when there was this news that 200 people were killed at a meeting. 200
killed.
When that happened, I felt somebody was not reporting accurately. But look at the spiral of violence since then. Leaving that to even one with a very grave implication, they are saying that hunger and hunger, actually starvation could be part of it, would escalate as attacks on farmers, increase. They are saying that about 18.6 million Nigerians are likely to face acute hunger.
That's not cherry news.
I am not a public prosecutor, but I think that besides charging them with terrorism, they should begin to also charge them with economic sabotage. Because when you deny us food, you're denying some farmers the ability to sell their products. If they cannot produce in the first place, how could they sell? If they don't sell, people are not empowered. If people are not empowered, it tells on the economy of the country, not just the state or the immediate community, concerned. So we need to, raise the stakes against these people because they are going for the jugular of the nation. Nobody is going to choke the life out of us. See something, say something, help the police and the army. The Zamfara governor actually went to see President Tinubu yesterday, and he said, Mr. President, the police and the military are not under my command, so we need, this is another way of saying, look, yes.
State police.
Yeah, some of my friends will tell me, this is your state police thing. I say, I've always believed in it. We've got to a stage where it has become inevitable. You're going to see that it would eventually sail through. Then there's another good one. I like news when it affects the rabble, the ordinary people. FG to roll out malaria vaccine in Bayelsa and Kebbi. They used to call it the African man's disease. That was why they never researched into getting a vaccine for malaria. But I hear that Europe is getting hot. And the parasite, the Plasmodium, is beginning to thrive there. So it's become important that a vaccine, gets, prepared. It's been done already.
It's produced, okay.
Malaria has upgraded to becoming a disease for all.
Well, there's actually an upgrading. I'm not a medical worker, but at a point they told you that chloroquine could not do it anymore. That was how the AZTs came in. You're now taking combination drugs that help you to deal with it, sometimes you feel the effect of those drugs really because you're packing in a lot. And sometimes people will tell you, I've taken drugs, but my head is still heavy. The malaria has left you. That heaviness of the head is the after effect of the drugs you took. After 5 days, you're going to find out. You understand? So people need such education. But what we are saying, hooray to, is that the vaccine needs to be to be tested out in Bielsa.
How
and,
safe is the vaccine?
Well, they never ever. I think this question was asked the other time. I am not a medical worker, but little bits of everything. That's what keeps the journalists going. A vaccine never gets tested out if the natural procedure for ensuring safety and efficacy has not been followed. You see, many professions in the country may have suffered, in the world actually, but I want to praise people in health, in the health sector, for still managing to stay faithful to their creed. Our journalism has been abused by so many people, so many charlatans. But you can't get away easily in the medical field with some of the things that are done in other professions. We have to commend those people.
Well, perhaps because it's also a more practical profession. We find that why journalism seems easier to infiltrate is that if you can speak English, you can write, particularly, you can analyze. Well,
Victor, may I stop you there? This is not the training class. We are not there. But I want to tell you that journalism is not about good English. It's not. It's about factuality, fairness, accuracy, objectivity, and balance.
It's easier.
Because it can be done in your dialect. It's not about English.
It's easier to infiltrate, but in this case, you have to be practical.
Easier,
you have to,
probably
it's
what you want
than
to
in
say.
medicine.
Yes, it's easier
That's
because
what I mean.
you have
That's what I
several
mean.
avenues now which you can churn out news or information to the
Actually,
public.
Victor was
social
speaking
media.
against the backdrop of the fact that some of us get intoxicated by the quality of English we speak, and it works for them here. I understand, Victor, but I wanted to make that point that any language can discuss journalism and do well in journalism.
Yes,
I am doing that for linguistics as well.
Fantastic. And then
They say Omehia can be called a former governor of River State.
Yes.
They were actually relying on INEC versus Amechi in a case in which the Supreme Court ruled that he wasn't in the first place the PDP candidate, so how could he possibly have become governor? You were saying something, Victor.
Yes, Ukwama slain soldiers for burial today.
Adieu.
I think that would be a good place
to the 17 noble men.
We just pray that their souls find eternal rest.
Amen.
And on that note, we can thank you, Chukwudi Okoli Ubaja, for coming out today again and always serving it hot.
That's how we work in the newsroom, because we like what we do. If it were possible, you would be a journalist without pay, because we enjoy it.
But it's not.
You got the bills to pay.
It's good to have a passion for what you do.
Oh yeah, it makes you happy. You feel like you're somebody.
So you're somebody.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chooks. We now call for a break. Good Morning Nigeria continues.